Hi, Crosby.
Hi, Lee.
Thanks for being here to talk to me today about everything screenwriting competitions.
Works.
Tell us a little bit about where you are in your career now, and then we'll go back to how it all started.
Yeah, I'm a working writer right now. Yeah, and everything that entails, like it is my job. There's no day job, right? So, which I think is the goal, right? To get to that place.
Absolutely. Without too many specifics, can you tell us about the projects that you have that you're working on right now?
Sure. Yeah. There's a TV show that I'm working on for Village Roadshow. That I've been developing for a few years, and then there's the movie Legendary, which was the script that was part of my breaking in, which I'm been developing and I'm a producer on as well.
Fantastic. So let's go back to the humble beginnings. You were always very active submitting screenplays to screenwriting competitions. Can you tell me a little bit about your approach to screenwriting competitions and your methodology submitting?
Yeah, listen, there was different approaches and methodologies, at various points of the process. I think one of the things when you're trying to break in is having accountability mechanisms in place to keep you writing. And it's always nice to be able to circle a date on the calendar and be like, I need to be done by then. I think that's a way of like sort of continuing your output, even if you don't have, the accountability mechanisms of managers or agents or, deadlines. Having those contest deadlines, I think is one way of doing it. I know that people use it for feedback as well. There are different ways that you can get feedback on your writing, but contests are one of them. Hey, did I place? How did I do? What were the comments? What was the feedback? Um, and then of course there's later on, I think as I got more tactical about it, I went, okay, like I'm trying to only submit things that I know are excellent and have a good chance of placing because placing as a finalist can do things, can open doors and get you to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise be able to meet. Um, different uses in different ways throughout my journey.
Talk to me about where you were in your screenwriting career before the placement that changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been out of grad school for playwriting and screenwriting for about a decade. I had made some progress. I'd had some wins that hadn't really translated into a career. I won the Beijing International screenwriting competition, flew out there to make a film. I'd had a short film that premiered at Santa Barbara and played at 25 festivals around the world, and so I kept sort of like notching wins under my belt, but nothing that was like translating into being able to do this professionally. Um, a decade in, it is that sort of point of frustration. I think uh, 6 or 7 years maybe is when I found out about you and went, oh, I didn't realize that I could actually be more tactical about my approach. I also felt like for the first time ever, I was a little lost in terms of my voice, and I felt like I was plateauing as a writer, which I knew that was a problem. And so you helped me with a lot of that and sort of sorting that out and getting tactical about the way that I'm reaching out to reps and really putting attainable goals together. So, I was in that place of working, and yeah.
So the competition that kind of changed everything for you was the script pipeline competition.
Yep.
Why did you opt to submit to that one?
Well, I think, different contests have different strengths and different things that they prefer, versus versus others. Like, applying to Sundance or is very different than sending a script into the Nickel, which is very different than script pipeline. I couldn't necessarily speak to like, Final Draft and Script Pipeline. I feel are probably more similar than some of the other ones, but like I couldn't speak to like the ways that there are differences there. There's differences, but I think between every single one, and I think when you I had never really sort of paid attention to like, well, what are the scripts that are doing well? What are the genres that are doing well in these different contests? So, I submitted to a few, but Script Pipeline had sort of was been one of the first that I identified this particular script because it was this sort of epic sci-fi romance. And I knew that that probably wouldn't go so well with like a Sundance or with the Nickel or some other contests. So that was part of why I identified it.
So, what happens when you place in a contest specifically of that size? And clearly, we're speaking to Script Pipeline here, so I'm not expecting you to account to how other organizers run their competitions. But can you give us the play-by-play of suddenly getting a heads up that you're moving up in the competition?
Yeah, it was the type of thing that with this particular script, like I moved on to write the next thing, right? Because that's what you have to do constantly. Um, and so I'd sort of submitted it and forgot that I'd even submitted it. And for whatever reason, like I just hadn't gotten the notifications about how it had been doing. It had been this was in the middle of COVID, mind you, right? And so I found out I was a finalist when I got a phone call from Matt while I was walking my dog, and I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it was, for me, it was this huge wave of validation, but it also was like a rallying call to reach out to my network and actually just to get to work, all right? Because it was reaching out to my network of people that I'd gotten to know over the course of my time in LA, and letting them know about the placement, letting them know about the script, trying to just get it out there. And at the same time that I was rallying my network, I also did a lot of sort of cold emails, just query letters. I was very targeted about it. I researched who the people were that I was going to be reaching out to, what clients they represent, and like why I think they would specifically be interested in reading my script. And I got a pretty decent response rate. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but I think I got about a 20% response rate asking to read it, which is pretty high. So in rallying my network, and I did it when I was a finalist because in talking to you'd said, hey, what if you don't win, right? Like, like if you do win, it's another reason to reach out to follow up. But if you don't, this is as high and as good as it's going to get in terms of reaching out. And I didn't win, so there you go. Yeah, and so I set up, 4 manager meetings in a week, which is great because then, they all get a little bit more competitive. And I picked my favorite, and they changed they changed my life.
That they did. So tell us a little bit more about what happened from there for Bring Me Back, which was your award or competition placing screenplay. What did these managers who changed your life do, and what happened?
Yeah. So, I went with Kaplan Perone. I went with Aaron Kaplan and Ben Newman, Kaplan Perone, and we just really they had a very good vibe. It was clear that they loved the material and that they just wanted to help make it better. One of the first things they did was they gave me notes. Not too many, and most of them had to do with the ending, which I think I turned around in a day, and then they gave me a few more, and I turned it around that in another day. I think it was literally 2 or 3 days of writing to address their notes, and then we had to sit on it because this was in the summer, and for spec sales they sort of usually like to go out in the fall or in the spring, because people are away in the summer, they're just not as checked in, and so during that time, it was about figuring out, hey, what are you going to write next? What are some other things that we can read? Just trying to figure out, what I could be working on in the meantime. And then, September came. It was the right time. They thought to go out with it. They sent over a list of producers that they wanted to send it to, and sort of what territories or what studios they have relationships with, or first look deals or whatever it is. And they sent it out on Wednesday. And on the Thursday, it was very clear it was going to find a home somewhere. On Friday, there were three different places I talked to, all of whom were just trying to take it off the table before it went even wider in terms of studios. And I was on the East Coast at the time, and so about, I don't know, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, I sort of made my final decision, and of course, sent emails to the people that I wasn't going to be working with because it was a large part of their week as well, and incredibly nice, talented people, um, a lot of them. So, and all of this happened on my wife's due date, so for our first child. So it was a whirlwind.
Yeah, it was definitely the win that changed, or the placement that changed everything. And that script was ultimately sold,
Mhm.
and is still in development with a lot of fun things happening for it. So it's exciting to see where it goes. What advice do you have for writers who are debating whether or not to submit to competitions?
I mean, listen, everything in terms of this entire industry costs you money until you start making money from it. That's true whether you go to film school or theater school. It's true no matter what, pretty much. Um, you know, Contests are a way of having access to people that you don't have access to. And, I think that depending on the way that you want to use them, they are useful, right? At that point in my career, when it was like, I just need I need a date on the calendar. I need that outside accountability. Guess what? I wrote more because I was circling a date on the calendar. It, for that point in my career when it was like, well, I actually just need to be submitting really excellent material so that I'm breaking through and getting contest placements so that I can be meeting people I wouldn't otherwise have access to, you know, well, it proved useful for that, didn't it? Um, it's another tool in the tool belt. It shouldn't be the only thing that you're doing. That would be way too passive, right? This business is incredibly competitive. You need to be going full out, doing everything and anything that you can. And for me, contests are one of those things that should be included in that person.
Very wise answer. Thank you for that.